Hello and welcome to a new video. So this video is just a quick walkthrough of the code execution of HITL, and that is human in the loop process for Azure Durable Task Scheduler, or commonly known as Azure DTS. So before we get started, we need to make sure that the Docker emulator for Azure Durable Task Scheduler is up and running. So I'll just quickly open the Docker desktop. So as you can see, the status is running. And also we can navigate to the DTS dashboard to ensure that the emulator is running fine. So the emulator is running on port number 8082, which we have set for this image, which I've set it here. And we'll just ensure that if there are any existing or pending orchestration entities and agents. So as you can see, there are none at the moment. So before we move to the code, let me first pull up the flowchart of the orchestration flow. So in the flow diagram, the first method is the start orchestration method. Okay, just give me a moment. I'll just use this selection. Yeah. So our first method will be start orchestration method, and this method basically acts as an entry point that the Azure function runtime invokes when Azure function is called externally. So in our example, we will invoke it through HTTP post through PowerShell, and also send the subject input through the same endpoints on which the AI agent would create its content. The next block is the run orchestration async method that acts as an orchestrator. So this is a very crucial function in the orchestration flow. So this function acts as an intermediary between the user interaction and the overall orchestration flow. And this function is invoked from the start orchestration async method as well. So through this method, a human, that is the user, is notified for approval or rejection. And in turn, this method then waits for the decision through an event called as an wait for external event. The next method in the flow is the human approval async method. So this method is exposed as an API endpoint, and which in turn raises the approval event, and the approval rejection decision is passed to the run orchestration async method through the user input. In our example, we will use the HTTP post method through PowerShell, and which will pass the approved or rejected decision. The approved or rejected decision will come either through an API or UI in real life use cases. Now, based on the user input, the orchestration decides to publish the content if approved, or just notify the user of the rejection through relevant call activities, which are the publish content and the notify user rejection methods. This also happens to the run orchestration async method. Now this basically completes our overall orchestration flow. Now let's get to the code first. What I'll do is that in the meantime, I'll run the project, because what happens is that during the first execution, it takes a bit of time to get started. So by the time it's starting up, I'll just give a quick walkthrough of the code. Okay, so first what we do is that we register an Azure OpenAI chat client in the dependency injection container using key service. And before that, we read all the app settings.json values. So as it is very much obvious that I cannot show you the apps, all the underlying uh, endpoints and the API keys values that are set in the app settings.json file. We also read the Azure key credentials from the app settings. And then we register then agent of type chat client agent in the DI container. And then the agent is configured as an durable agent with a time to live configured to an hour. But we'll just check on this. Okay, this ran pretty quickly. Okay, now the next crucial component is the orchestration. So as I mentioned in the flow, in the flow chart, so our first method will be start orchestration async method, which will have its endpoint executed through executed through HITL/run. Now this reads the so this method basically reads the input from the HTTP request data, and then it creates an instance ID. Sorry, it schedules and creates an instance ID and invokes an orchestrator called run orchestration async, which in our case will be run orchestration async, and then it returns a response as an with a HTTP status code as accepted. Now the run orchestration async, as I mentioned earlier in my explanation, is a very crucial component in the orchestration. So it first it fetches an agent from the context, which is a task orchestration context, and then creates an agent session and reads from the input from the context. I mean, we can also send the input values as an parameter to this method, but it's much better to read the input directly from the context. Anyways, so the agent then creates the content based on the input received, and then this method then calls a call activity async for notify user for approval method. So if you go back to the flowchart, so this is the method that this run orchestration async invokes to notify the user. And in the meantime, it waits for an external event, which is the approval response, for an hour. And if the response received is yes, then it calls the publish content activity, which is this. And if the response is no, then it calls the notify user for rejection activity. Now the human approval async, which is where the run orchestration async method waits for, is also an HTTP endpoint but with an instance ID. Now this instant ID we can get from the start orchestration async method. And then it raises an event for the given instance ID with the event name human approval. Now this event name should match the event name mentioned in the task orchestration context. Sorry, mentioned in the orchestration trigger. In our case, which is a run orchestration async method. And then it returns a response with a HTTP status code OK. Now this three activities, like it's a notification user for approval. I mean, in real use case, it should either be an email or some kind of a notification with a link to the approval, which in our case would be this endpoint HITL/notification/instance ID, and publish content also will be like publish it to some kind of a CRM or anything, CMS or something similar. And if it's a rejection, again it will be an email sending out a rejection email to the stakeholders. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention these two parts. Yeah, so the HTML. So we first create a record called text response where the agent output is stored, and we have two methods, so two classes input, which is an input from the user, which is an input from the topic, which comes from the start orchestration async method. And the second is the human approval. This is just a simple yes or no property. I mean, you can expand it. You can maybe add like ask for the user for additional feedback. You can have an additional property called as a feedback, but I just kept it a bit simple. All right, so that's it for our code. Now we'll go back to the execution. Okay, so our human approval async endpoint is this. No, first we need to execute the start orchestration async. So I already have that ready in our PowerShell. So the input is write a review for Football Club Barcelona, and we have to ensure that the port matches to the one that we have set in the launch settings.json of the project. I'll just execute this. I'll open the DTS dashboard. Now you should, after some time, you should see a new orchestration instance listed here. Just check on the status. So it's So the input is write a review for Football Club FC Barcelona. Yeah, so the agent has created the content. We can just do a quick refresh here. So we should have an orchestration ID here. So this is our orchestration instance ID. Now, as you can see, the orchestration awaited schedule one durable operation. So basically the orchestration is now awaiting for an external event. So the status is running. So I'll just quickly open this. So as you can see, it has notified the user, but now it is waiting for an external event. So in our case, it would be through this endpoint, HITL notification slash instance ID. So instance ID would be this. Just copy this, paste it here. Now, so we are basically approving this content. So according to our flow, so you should call the publish content activity. I'll just run this and go check the status. So this is starting publish content activity and the orchestration completed with status and 0 byte or output. Now we'll go back to our dashboard. We'll just do a quick refresh. As you can see, the publish content is completed. And also in the payloads, we have the custom status, content published successfully. Oh, okay. I think I should work. Okay. Let me go to the code and check. Okay, okay. I'll just, it's something like I need to properly convert the date time to the correct format. Anyways, so according to our flow, the publish content activity was called and the overall orchestration was completed. Now entities, we have this entity. So we can, so this entity basically, this option basically exposes the overall flow in an JSON format. So we can check the agents as well. Here we can see the number of prompts taken and the total overall chat history, the completion tokens, the total tokens. We'll go back here. We can have much more detailed uh, view, like overall steps taken to complete the orchestration. So timer, if you see here, the status is still running because we have set it for 1 hour. So it will keep running for like 1 hour. Anyways, so what we'll do is now is we'll go back and we'll write a review for maybe say like Football Club Arsenal. We'll just execute this. So we have this input for Football Club Arsenal. We'll go back to our DTS. We'll do a quick refresh. We'll go to orchestrations. So as you can see, it has created a new instance ID. Now I think it's waiting for an user input. So yeah, so it has notified user for approval and waiting for an user input. What we'll do is that we'll again say yes and we'll invoke this. So we have approval is yes. We'll do a quick refresh. Yeah, so we have published the content and our orchestration completed with completed status of 0 byte. All right, so we'll do a no rejection. I'll say write a review for Football Club, maybe like Real Madrid. And I really don't like this club, Real Madrid. So that's why I'm gonna reject this content. Real Madrid. Go to orchestration. You should have the third orchestration instance created. Write a review for Football Club Real Madrid. So it's running. So again, it's waiting for an approval, and we'll have to copy the instance here, instance ID, paste it here. It says completed. Now, according to our flow, it should be notify user for rejection. I'll do a quick refresh. It says notify user for rejection, and if you go at the custom status, it says the content is rejected by human reviewer publishing content. All right, so that's about it. I hope this quick walkthrough helps you understand how the uh, overall components are interconnected and what is the exact flow to have HITL, that is the human in the loop scenarios implemented in your Azure Durable Functions for Microsoft Agent Framework. So what I'll do is that I'll post a link to the article wherein I have given an extensive uh, explanation of all the important components of the code and the overall workflow. All right. So if you do have any questions or comments, do let me know, and I'll appreciate if you can share any feedback on the topic. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.